When you don't trust someone, you don't respect them as much. And so you don't trust yourself, you're going to breed a lack of self-respect in your life. And so that's why it's so important to do things that improve that sense of trust that you have with yourself. And you do that by meeting your own expectations. And you can't meet your own expectations if you set them all the way up here and you're all the way down here. It's just not going to be realistic. It's not going to be feasible. And what you're going to end up doing is creating even more dissonance between you and you, even more of a trust issue between you and yourself. Welcome back to another episode of Initial Impressions. My name is Kayli Pommering, and I'll be your host today. As always, this podcast is dedicated to helping you feel more at peace and becoming the best version of yourself. This week, I'm going to be tackling an issue that I feel like comes up a lot for people when they're trying to work towards their goals and they're feeling stagnant, complacent, like they really can't just make any way forward. They're having a hard time changing their habits and really crafting their life into what it needs to be or what it takes to get where they want to be. Two biggest reasons that I feel like people bump into this is a lack of self-trust and a lack of momentum. And so I'm going to help you combat both of these two problems and give you some solutions, things that you can do in your day-to-day life to really help you build that self-trust again and to help you build some momentum so that way you can steadily keep continuing to get closer and closer to your goals and actually feel the momentum, feel the energy, the excitement, the growth, and the expansion happening. There are two things that I think contribute to the lack of self-trust the most, and that is over-identifying with your bad habits and bad characteristics and having unrealistic expectations and goals for yourself. I'm going to explain the first one a little bit. I think it's very common to say, like, I am lazy, or I am bad at this, or I am not healthy, I'm bored. We say I am statements a lot. We identify with what we don't want to be a lot. And if you can shift your perspective for a second and realize that who you are as a person is so fluid, you're actually like essentially a blank canvas in the sense that you really can choose to embody pretty much anything. Like, of course, there are some things like, no, I can't just like decide I have wings and have wings, but you get to decide if you're a lazy person or if you're not a lazy person. You get to decide if you're energetic or if you're lethargic, if you're entertained or if you're bored. You get to decide what characteristics you hold. And you do that through your daily habits, through your belief systems, through the thoughts that you continue to perpetrate in your mind about yourself and about what you're doing. So when you have a trait that maybe you develop as a kid, or maybe other people told you that you had as a kid, maybe it kind of stuck with you. Maybe people kept telling you that you were bad at math. And so you just like decided you were bad at math. And then maybe it was a little challenging for you, but instead you just kind of went along with what everybody said. You just kind of accepted that. And you've just always just said you're bad at math. I know for me, for a really, really long time, I said that I wasn't creative. I didn't think I was a creative person. When I was in high school, I was very sciencey. Like I just like wanted to like do the work, very like type A kind of person. I wasn't into things that were super creative. I had a hard time with that, with my imagination, with like art, things like that. I'm not an artist. And it's so funny because I remember a couple years later as I really started to realize that I had the power to be anything that I wanted to be and embody any characteristic that I wanted to. And I started to wonder, why did I say that I'm not an artistic person when I'm so drawn to artistic things? And I would always just like, oh, I wish that like I was an artist, but like I'm not creative. And I'm like, why? Why is that a thing? And so I remember I was like, I really have wanted to paint my whole life. I've always wanted to paint. And so I got a bunch of supplies and I just started playing around and I loved painting and I realized how much I actually needed that creative expression, how much it did for me. And like I've been creating podcasts and creating art and just I create, stories, I journal, I write, like all of these things that I did not give myself an outlet for so many years because I just thought I'm not a creative person. That's not who I am. You know, my sister, she does music, she does art, she's creative. That's not my thing. And even though I wanted to be creative, but I just kept reinforcing this ideal in my head that I wasn't because I hadn't exercised it in the past. For a long time, I looked at myself and I was like, oh, I'm not athletic. I don't know why I thought that. I love the gym. I love working out. I actually love playing volleyball. Like, I love doing things like that. It's just that growing up, I didn't do it very often. And so I just decided, like, oh no, I'm not athletic. So if you're getting what I'm putting down, basically, sometimes we just think that we're something, or we were told that we're something that we don't even want to be, and that we haven't really practiced not being. And so, when you have these bad habits, when you have these characteristics that you don't want to continue to embody, but you keep telling yourself that's just who you are, you're limiting yourself so much because you don't have to be that. You can be something else. You can wake up and decide to practice another characteristic, to practice embodying a different energy. And so the first step to that can be to stop over identifying with what you no longer want to be, with what you no longer want to have in your life, what you no longer want to embody. So if you don't like it about you, stop over identifying it. You can maybe say, I am experiencing laziness. I am experiencing lethargy. Whatever it is, you're experiencing it. I've had a habit of being XYZ. Okay. But you, at your core, you are not that. You are what you want to be. That is what you are drawn into. In order to have that manifest in your external world, though, of course, you need to practice embodying those things. So if you can just at least start by not over identifying with these things that you don't want to be, that's going to help you just push you a little bit closer to actually showing up as the person that you do want to be. And then once you've stopped over identifying, you can figure out what you do want to identify as. If you don't like these characteristics that you've had for a really long time, okay, well, then what characteristics do you want to have? What kind of person have you always wanted to be? What kind of characteristics have you always wanted to say was true about you? Whatever it is, what did you want to build? Who do you want to be? Think about those things and allow yourself for a moment to acknowledge that why would you want to be creative if you're not creative? If that's just the way you are and that can't change, why would you want to be something else? Isn't that kind of weird? Like, why do you have to have that limitation? Why do you have to be stuck in this dichotomy of, I want to be more, but I'm just not? No, I want to be more, so I will be. If you can make that shift, then you can unlock so many things. Then the next step to really building the self-trust is actually giving yourself realistic expectations, realistic timelines, realistic tasks. Easy, easy, easy. Okay. There is nothing wrong with making the travel from point A to point B as simple and easy as possible. If you have a goal, you do not have to uphill climb your entire journey to that goal. It is not necessary. I'm not saying that there will not be challenges or setbacks or failures. Actually, the setbacks, challenges, and failures are why you're struggling with self-trust issues right now. And I'm going to teach you a way to respond to it more effectively. So the next time these things happen, you don't find yourself in a like serious state of a lack of self-trust, and which always breeds a lack of self-respect. When you don't trust someone, you don't respect them as much. And so you don't trust yourself, you're going to breed a lack of self-respect in your life. And so that's why it's so important to do things that improve that sense of trust that you have with yourself and to get that relationship back on the right footing. And you do that by meeting your own expectations. And you can't meet your own expectations if you set them all the way up here and you're all the way down here. It's just not going to be realistic. It's not going to be feasible. And what you're going to end up doing is creating even more dissonance between you and you, even more of a trust issue between you and yourself, because you are going to continue disappointing yourself and it's going to make you feel even worse about yourself. So if you sit down and you're like, I'm going to change my life. I was all these things in the past. That's kind of how I acted, but I don't want to be that anymore. I want to be XYZ. I want to have XYZ, and I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, and I'm going to do this by next week. I'm going to change my whole life, all these things. And then you go and you try and do it, and you don't meet your expectations, and you feel literally worse than you did before. That is going to send us backwards. That's not the path that we're going to take this time. It happens time and time and again. It's literally about to be January 1st. People are going to be coming up with their New Year's resolutions. They're going to be putting themselves on crazy plans and restrictions and all these things. And if you're not careful, you're going to end up with even more trust issues with yourself than you did going into all of those goals. Okay. So this is how we're going to protect ourselves from that. We're going to make things stupid easy. Okay. When you have a goal for yourself, I want you to think all the way, what is the very, very, very first step? And then what is the first step of that? Okay. And usually it's just brainstorming. Okay. Make it okay to set goals that don't produce results, that don't produce tangible results. Be okay with goals that are actually just baby steps. Okay. So if I say, when I wanted to create my podcast, the first goal was just simply talking to people about it, just simply asking people about it. Okay. Just literally getting curious. So if you have some goals, get curious. Put that on your to-do list. I literally have to-do lists when I have like new ideas for things that I want to launch in the future. I'm not like, okay, what's the full, 12-step plan to get this out within a month? Like, no, I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on myself. You have enough things going on. You're a multifaceted person with a multifaceted life. You're trying to be healthy with your body. You're trying to be healthy with your mind. You're trying to make money. You're trying to take care of your family. You're trying to do XYZ. There's a lot of stuff going on. Don't make these goals that are in the end going to be life-changing. Don't make them so hard to get started on. And so we're going to want to do things that we can snowball effect, that we can build momentum really, really easily. So maybe for you, that literally just looks like this week, I'm going to ask one of my friends who does this about it. This week, I'm going to watch a day in the life YouTube video for somebody who is, has my dream career. Or I'm going to look up what type of workouts are great for beginners. Not I'm going to go to the gym, just I'm going to look up workouts that are good for beginners. If you can just get your foot in the door, there's something about telling yourself, I'm going to do this, and then doing it that builds so much self-trust and momentum, even if it's so easy. Here's an example of how your expectations can really affect your self-trust and your self-respect. Okay, so let's say you have a goal. There's a book that's been on your nightstand for a while. You want to read it. It's going to teach you a lot about your career. It's going to make you a better person, XYZ, whatever reason. So you set an expectation for yourself that you're going to read 5 pages every single night before bed this week. Now, when you pick up your book, you read 5 pages, you knock it out. That's super easy amount. All of a sudden, you're at 10 pages. And some days you only read the 5, and some days you read a little more. And at the end of the week, you look back and you go, wow, I kept the promise to myself. I actually exceeded my own expectations. Now let's take same person, same goal. They want to read this book every single night. They set the expectation that's just a little harder, okay? They set the expectation that they're going to read 25 pages a night when they're used to not reading at all, okay? Now, this person sets this unreasonable goal, and most nights they go to take out their book and they can only get to 5 or 10 pages before they fall asleep. And at the end of the week, they look back on what they did and they say, wow, I disappointed myself again. I didn't meet my own expectations. Why even bother? Why even try? This person read 5 or 10 pages each night either way, but their perception of the work they put in is different because the first person in the first scenario set a realistic goal, one they knew that they could meet. and they fostered a sense of self-trust and even a sense of appreciation and even more respect, because not only were they able to meet their goal, they were able to exceed it. And that shows the significance of what it means to set a goal that is feasible for you. When you set these unrealistic goals, you're opening yourself up to feel exhausted, to feel depleted, to feel a lack of self-trust, a lack of respect. And when you don't trust yourself, you don't put yourself in positions for growth. You're afraid that you're not going to be able to meet your own expectations. You're afraid you're not going to be able to meet other people's expectations. You're afraid that to try out new skills because you don't know if you can actually accomplish them, if you have what it takes. And so we all have what it takes. Okay, we can make something out of nothing. We can build something from the ground up. If you feel super called to something, you're meant to make it happen. You're meant to do it. But in order to get to that point, in order to even fully believe that, we need to build back up that sense of self-trust and that sense of self-respect. And we need to build momentum. And so we're going to do that by not over-identifying with what we don't want to be and what we don't want to have and what we don't want to do. We're going to quit saying that's who we just are, because it's not. And then we're going to also start making our goals stupid easy, realistic, feasible. I'm talking goals. I know I can do this goal. Okay. Not, I hope I can do this week goal. No, your goals need to be, I know I can do this. And there's something about that energy that is so much better when you go into a week where you have goals set up for the full week and you can look at all of them and say, I know I can do this. That is so much more encouraging than the dread that you feel when you have a week of goals set up that is like so hard, so much different than what you've been doing on a day-to-day basis, and just going to be really impossible to do consistently and to really build a sense of self-trust and self-respect. So I hope this is helpful. Some of these things, they might sound a little bit obvious, but it's things that we all do. Comparison is the thief of joy. Sometimes we see other people doing these things and we say, okay, well, I should be able to do it. They can do it. But we don't know what their path to getting to that output looked like, to getting to those results looked like, to being able to show up every day with those qualities and those habits. We don't know what their path was to get to that, how long it took them, how long they've been working on it, how long they've been building to that. And so don't compare yourself to other people. Don't set unreasonable goals for yourself just because somebody else is where you want to be and you're not there yet. Make it easy on yourself. Keep building the momentum, keep building that self-trust, rebuild that relationship with yourself. And when failure comes, don't identify with it. Don't identify who you are as a person to your failures. The failure was just an experience. It was an opportunity for you to learn something new. You learned something new. What are you going to do with that information? I hope this episode was helpful. I hope that you're able to really build some momentum towards your goals using these methods. And if you gain anything from this episode, I would appreciate so much if you could like it, leave a review, rating, subscribe, all the things. If there's anybody that you think could really benefit from this episode, especially going into the new year where we're all going to be setting up our goals for 2025, this is going to be really helpful for that. And so if you think of anyone that could benefit from it, please send it their way. I appreciate you all endlessly for your listens and views and subscribes and all the things. So as always, I hope that you are leaving more at peace than you came.